Hi everyone, and welcome back to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today in our new home for the first time on this channel. I'm sure that filming locations may continue to evolve, but this is from our sunroom, and I just love all the green, as I'm wearing green too, I guess, but it's a nice fresh vibe here as we talk about different ways that we've set up our home in a very intentional and minimal way. The first step actually came from more of the design process and wanting a very open layout and also a very consistent home. We actually used the same flooring throughout the entire home, as well as opting for the, albeit the cheapest package with just plain white walls here to start. Now I think for a while I used to push back against comments like, oh, why does minimalism have to have white walls? And I think maybe even I let that get to my head a little bit. So when we finally did buy our condo back in 2018, we painted our bedroom a rich dark blue. And I was like, see, it doesn't have to just be white. But I've matured a little bit and realized that I don't feel super compelled to do that again. Maybe that got it out of our system. It's not to say that we won't choose other colors on the wall, but I have to be honest, the white on the wall is just very clean and peaceful feeling. I don't feel like I'm deprived in any way. It feels really open, and I love that it's cohesive throughout the entire space, whether you're upstairs, downstairs, really in any room of the house. And this lays a strong and simple foundation for setting up the rest of the space, because you know that no matter what room you're working on, the floor is the same, the walls are the same. That has been actually quite helpful in the process of getting set up here. It really is like a blank canvas in terms of whatever we want to do in the short term or even in the long term. Something else that has really helped us when setting up our home is setting up or prioritizing certain focal points that will naturally draw the eye's attention or that really highlight, the room. So to give a few examples, I think in this sunroom here, for a long time, we actually just had this Chase lounge there that really was a centerpiece in this room and really captured the attention, but also wasn't over cluttered to the point that it felt like it took away from the natural surroundings. This also includes our dining room table as really a central point, basically just on the flip side of this camera from where I'm filming. Having select pieces that really are prioritized. I know I've talked about for years on this channel, keep the best, declutter the rest when you're simplifying. And I think as we were basically doing the opposite of populating a new open space, we took that to heart and really made sure that we had very strategic pieces and none of the spaces felt overwhelmed, and we didn't want to feel like we were packing too much stuff in a particular space. We haven't done a lot of decorating yet. A lot of the decoration we've essentially done more so is setting up the room, but when we are having decorations on surfaces, we're generally sort of using that rule of thirds where you're balancing maybe 3 items or 2 to 4 items in an area as a little cluster and then keeping the rest of the surface open. And I don't have a lot of design background, but this is something that naturally feels good to me to put together. I know that I'm not crowding a space with too much decor, and it gives a nice flow to the surfaces without them looking completely empty. Although I do enjoy an empty surface. To help us set up the home, we've also really focused on the size of different items and playing with that sizing, whether something is oversized or maybe reducing the size of certain household objects. That has also been really helpful. To give an example, we watched a lot of interior design videos and decor videos ahead of time to help us have a good strategy before moving in. And pretty much something that all of the videos talked about that was very important with rugs specifically is making sure the rug is large enough for the space and having oversized rugs. So that was kind of a strategy we went in with, and I think that it really made a huge difference. Of course, going in buying a larger rug is unfortunately more expensive, so we did kind of budget this as part of our new furniture budget, if you will, as all of our spaces had hard floors, and we did like to have some elements of texture and a soft feel from the rugs. So we ended up getting a 10 by 14 foot rug for our main living space. We have a 9 by 12 rug underneath our dining room table, several 8x10 rugs in our master bedroom and office. And I don't remember the exact dimensions here of this sunroom. This one's a little smaller, maybe 7x9. But it really did make a huge difference by going with the oversized look. To show you a rug from our past selves that was used, this is upstairs in our loft space, which is very much our catch-all space that's definitely going to need more work. This is a much smaller rug, as you can see, and so it really doesn't look as inviting or luxurious as the other rooms, even though ironically that rug was a little bit more expensive than some of the others. Another area that this has been helpful has been for our pantry bins, making sure that the bins we got were large enough that they could fit most or hopefully all of what is in them. I think one of our struggles in the past is if we went and stocked up on something that was on sale or bought something in bulk, it might overwhelm the size of the bins that there were. But in this case, by having a much larger bin from the start, sure, some of the bins are just half empty, but you're able to contain things better, and it helps us with the flow of organization, knowing we can fit generally what we buy. We did buy a little bit too much cereal recently, so that bin is overflowing, but otherwise things are pretty solid using these bins in our pantry. On the flip side, somewhere that we wanted to reduce the size of items came from our storage bins. So we had a variety of large plastic tubs that we kind of brought from place to place. These had a lot of our sentimental items and memories, photos from the past. And these large tubs were just so heavy and irritating to move. It was all mismatched tubs that were just, somehow we accumulated over the years. And we wanted a better system so we didn't have to constantly be unstacking or stacking up these different bins. It was tough to find things because the bins were large and stuff was mixed in throughout those bins. So in our closet now, we have a much more improved organization system. These particular bins I did purchase from Target when they were doing like a 20% off deal. And we went through carefully and subdivided all of our different types of items that were in these bigger bins, and now have them labeled in a spot that is accessible, but not too accessible that it's taking up more valuable real estate in our home. And that's been a huge improvement. It's much easier now to know exactly what we have and where it is, rather than having these large, unidentified, unlabeled tubs. So sometimes it's not just about enhancing the size of an item in the house, like the rugs. Sometimes it's about being more strategic and breaking larger groups of items down. Now, when we transitioned into the new home, there was definitely a lot of temptation to purchase many new items for the space. However, two things that really helped us. Number one, ahead of time, we saved up a set budget and an itemized list for what was going to be purchased for the home, like what was a higher priority. And so some of those things, like the rugs I mentioned, or even we did end up going with a king bed and mattress. So that was a large chunk of the furniture fund that we had set up. But having this as a separate fund was immensely helpful to know that that was what we had to work with. But after we crossed that threshold, we had to wait then for making other home purchases. Now it has been 3 months, so fortunately each month we were able to set aside some other funds to purchase additional items. But really having those limits in place is so important, especially, at least in the US, maybe other places too, when you first close on a home and you're first starting to make mortgage payments. Your interest amount is going to be so much higher, maybe than your principal, and just in general, you'll pay the most interest up front. So really wanted to prioritize extra principal payments to work through that interest. So didn't want to spend too much on furniture that we couldn't also help support paying off the house. That being said, it's also important to analyze your existing possessions and work them in where you can so that you don't have to buy as much new stuff. And fortunately, there were a lot of our items, even if we aren't using them the same way as before, they still have been helpful. Even just over here in this sunroom space, the only other piece of furniture besides this chair and little side table is our old TV stand. We did end up wall mounting our TV here now that we own the space, and we love having that off the floor and great for viewing and not having furniture there. But we didn't want to get rid of this TV stand, so this TV stand actually ended up being the perfect fit for sort of a bookshelf area, a little bit of storage in the cabinets there. And this is a big improvement. We're still able to use it, not in its intended use, but albeit a good use nonetheless, in a central space. And we didn't have to go buy a bookshelf to add on to, our purchases. We definitely were able to also use a lot of our organizational tools in different ways. For instance, I had this little shelf organizer thing from the apartment that I brought over to organize a few of our items in the bathroom. This towel rack still has come in handy because we didn't love the location of the towel rack where things were set up before. So just kind of taking these different things throughout the space and really analyzing, where can this be used? Can this still be helpful? Maybe you'll switch things around. I know our office setup looks a lot different than it was before, but we ended up taking this little blue couch that we had and putting it as a window seat sort of between our two taller bookshelf organizers that we've had for, I think, already like 5 years, and moving the other bookshelf organizer piece to a different wall. So it just may be a matter of being creative and thinking about how you can best meet the needs that you currently have or that the new space has with your existing pieces, so you don't have to let those things go to waste or buy as much. I will soon be posting a video though sharing some of the things we decluttered because unfortunately not everything was able to be used. Something else that really helped us in setting up this new space is setting clutter barriers. Now I think especially some of the first times that people were coming over when we were getting stuff set up, you want to have things looking a certain way but haven't had the time to perfect everything. There were some times where we were just shoving some stuff in extra closets, but I think as we've lived here longer, it's definitely been a priority to set barriers of where we won't put clutter or where we won't put any items unless they really pertain to that space. So we've actually set 3 locations that are off limits for stuff. Now, of course, this is not necessarily a tool that is helpful in every situation because we ended up tripling our space from the apartment in terms of square footage. So that's quite a big sizable jump. But we have 2 bedrooms right now that are not being used regularly. One of them will actually be like a nursery in the future once I get pregnant and we have a baby. So right now that room just has we call it the nursing chair, but basically just a nice cushy rocking lounge chair that's up there. And in this time, we are keeping this closet completely empty except for items that do pertain to having a child. Also, we have a guest bedroom now. This is where our old bed is, and we're keeping this closet 100% empty as well, with the exception of 2 extra chairs that we purchased for our dining room table. So we have a set, but we don't need 8 chairs out every day. And lastly, we are not putting any of our clutter or random items in the basement. We do have a basement. We're currently using it more as a gym and hangout area. So that is not a spot we want to be putting stuff. It would be an easy space to throw a bunch of stuff, but that is not our intent, and it's forcing us to go through our items more carefully and make sure all the rest of the house is organized better. After all, why do items randomly accumulate in different spots? It's because we don't know where to put them. We haven't made those decisions yet and really analyzed how essential pieces are. So it's just convenient to throw them somewhere, but that's not a long-term solution. That's a short-term solution that you will have to return back to, and it will be a headache later. So that's where setting clutter boundaries can be helpful to say, yeah, you know what, we're not even going to go there. We're not even going to start. And that will save time down the road. And lastly, something that has helped us a lot is to take our time in the process. It's so exciting having a new space, and admittedly, I've gotten way more into home things than I expected, but it's important to know that this is a long journey and you can take your time. We don't have things finished. There's still a lot in progress. There doesn't have to be stuff in every room. Like I showed you in the nursery clip, there's pretty much nothing in there at the moment, and there's no need to add anything until that time comes where we actually have to get that stuff set up. In the meantime, yeah, it's just going to be an empty room. We were thinking ahead when we purchased this home and not based on just current needs of two people. And I am someone who maybe overthinks a bit and loves planning, so we also did not rush into hanging up any decor in the house on the walls yet. I feel like that's definitely something I want to do with strategy and with a big picture plan that I do not yet have. We have a few pieces of artwork from different travels that we've done and some other cool stuff. However, I am looking for a little bit of advice. I do want to put up many of our photos from trips that we have done and that kind of thing. And I even, some of Jake's aunts gave us a gift card to Shutterfly to get some prints and other photos to hang up. But here's my question. So Jake and I have been together for 10 years. We have traveled so much. I have hundreds of favorite photos from these trips. So there's definitely a lot that would be really fun to do. I do think it'd be kind of fun to do a 7 continents wall with a photo from each continent. Of course, you could also do the same for like the US states or countries. I mean, the amount of travel photos we have is insane. But I also know that at least people who I'm aware of or close with who have kids, they do a lot with kid photos. And I also want to be that person too. And I think there's so many cute things you could do with kid photos. Like people do photos with a photo every year, and it shows how kids are growing. And I'm sure we'll be traveling a lot with family in the future. So I'm unsure how to balance the photos that Jake and I have taken, in these last 10 years together as we've seen the world and that sort of thing, but also making sure I'm not dominating the house decor with photos from our past when a very exciting chapter of our life will be beginning, hopefully soon, and in the next few years. I want to be able to prioritize those too. So I'm just curious for any feedback or tips you guys have about how you handle photos in your house and how you display them. So that wraps up this video here. I've got a lot more house content to show in the next videos, and looking forward to doing that. Of course, I'm sure at some point there will be a Q&A video, so you can feel free to ask those as well. That could be saved for a future video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.